You know what I mean? And I feel like when you live in a cushy society, which is nice, I enjoy it. You know, I like having like ease. One of the things that happens is that you don't think about it for a long time. You know what I mean? And then when something like this comes up, you don't know how to necessarily cope with it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so unusual to have the prospect of death or a lot of people dying or a lot of people being unwell. That's not something that most people think about on a regular basis. Do you know what I mean? And so when you're not used to thinking about it, you think about it, it weirds you out, makes you uncomfortable. For me, it's just kind of like, you know, I mean, and it's so easy to conflate that with a flippant attitude about not doing intelligent things to sort of, that you know, behavioral modifications that might be appropriate under circumstances like this, is in no way the same as worrying at all about anything. You know what I mean? Like if it's your job to procure beds and ventilators, well then you've got an adult data processing, reality manipulation task in front of you. Who are you going to call? You know? Who are you going to make contact with? Where are you going to rearrange these things? Where are you going to move around? That person probably should be thinking about it. Everyone else? I don't know. You know, I mean, it's not gonna get you anywhere. But the reason I think that it's so easy to think about a whole bunch of stuff like that that's not productive to think about is because you're so disquieted by the prospect of death, whether it's yours or someone that you know or care about, or just a lot of unknown people in a way that's kind of scary. You know what I'm saying? The tendency is to feel intensely and to think and to kind of perseverate just because the prospect of death is such an uncomfortable thing for you. So it gets you into a situation where you end up living in a way that's not useful or intelligent or enjoyable, right? And I think that one of the skills that I want to have, I really think that worry is a misuse of intelligence, so that you've got this intelligence. I mean, in a sense, the capacity to see into the future is sort of a form of intelligence. It's certainly a function of the brain. You know what I mean? But what's interesting to me is that, so you have this capacity to see into the future and to sort of think out certain things that could happen, could get better, could get worse, could be terrible, whatever. And then you sort of let the lizard part take control of that. You know, you let the lizard part of the brain react to these possible scenarios that what you could call the newer part of the brain is thinking up, this projection into the future. But my thing is like, how can you think about a potential future development, things getting bad, without having to kind of create an emotional reaction to that prospective future event here, now, in the present, you know? And one of the things that's interesting about that, in terms of people being able to say, let's say, envision a future that they really are excited about and that they love, you know, this can happen and this will be wonderful, and I'll have this, and what would it feel like to have all this money, and what would it feel like to have this kind of relationship and this kind of a job and be in this kind of physical shape. How, you know, a lot of people, they can envision those things in their future to one degree or another and not feel it at all. But then if they think about, you know, someone dying in a pandemic, or themselves or their family or whatever, they have no trouble feeling the terrible feelings of that. And so one of the things for me is learning what I'm going to feel after. Is it useful to feel after that thing? You know, because I mean, I can see the value of looking into the future and seeing a wonderful outcome that I want, right? Seeing great things happening. And then feeling those things and like convincing myself that's the direction things are headed. And I can see where that kind of state would potentially lead to productive behaviors on my part that might help bring that fruition about, right? On the other hand, though, sitting around worrying about how bad things might get, I don't necessarily see that to me seems fundamentally impotent, because it's not as though you can worry yourself into resourceful behavior. Usually that's not particularly how it works. Like the threshold for getting a person to, well, the funny thing about that is you see all these people who are supposedly worried about all this stuff, and what are they doing? They're not washing their hands, or they're touching their mouth, or you know what I'm saying? They're doing all these things that don't make sense, despite the fact that they're worrying way more than they need to, you know, to meet the threshold to get themselves to do the things that do make sense. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, it's like that ability to be in control of my mind and of my brain, and to make a conscious choice that says, what kind of an experience am I going to create in this type of a circumstance? Well, it's rational to be panicking. Well, I don't owe my allegiance to rationality, even if that's true. I don't think it is, but even if it were, I don't say to myself, well, it's rational to panic, and so I'm going to lean into panicking. I mean, I have a capacity in a given moment in time to make a conscious choice about what I'm going to do, and also what I'm not going to do with my mind, and with my body too, behaviorally, mental behavior, physical behavior. Like, I have these choices, and in general, reality sets me up to do a particular thing at a given moment in time. My circumstances, the time of day, my biochemistry, my financial situation, my relationship status, the strength or toxicity of my social network, all these different things kind of come together to invite me to think and feel and do certain things, right? Like the gestalt, the sum total of what it's like to be me, invites me to respond or react to what it's like to be me in a particular way. Usually, a given reality invites me to react to it in a way that will tend to perpetuate or exacerbate the most kind of experientially relevant aspects of that environment. So kind of as an example of that, let's say that my girlfriend is angry at me, and because of that fact, she is speaking to me in harsh tone, or she's ignoring me, or she's kind of fault finding with me, or whatever. That's my reality. My girlfriend's pissed. She's acting like she's pissed. Those facts all together invite me to do what? To react to my reality, one subset of which is my girlfriend and her behavior, in a way that's going to tend to what? Exacerbate, perpetuate the most experientially relevant aspects of it, which is what? A girlfriend that's really pissed. So you're pissed at me, you're kind of, give me a hard time. I then what? Feel put out, I feel angry, right? I think in my mind what I've been invited to think in a kind of reactive way. I then feel what those thoughts kind of are conducive to me feeling, and I then act on the basis of those thoughts. I snap back at you. You then say, oh boy, he's even more of an asshole than I thought, and double down on your behavior, So that's reasonable in a sense, and it's logical or maybe rational in a sense. It's certainly understandable. I'm justified maybe in doing that. And a lot of other people will say to me, well, of course she was talking to you that way. They make it out as though the only two options that I have are to be a doormat or to bang my head against the wall. But really, for me, there's another option that says, okay, given this, what do I want? But it's not fair she's treating me that way. Okay, well, given that, what do I want? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay, given this sort of mass hysteria, or maybe that's overstating it, given the fact that everyone's worried and preoccupied with this thing. People are worried and preoccupied with dumb shit all the time. Every once in a while, though, the majority of people become worried and preoccupied with the same dumb piece of shit, the same particular piece of information. That's when everyone starts to go, oh, maybe I should really worry about this. To me, it's like, if there's 5 idiots who are worried about it, I mean, think about all the hypochondriacs in the world, and all the germaphobes in the world, that they can't live their life because they're so concerned about extant and sort of non-existent. You would never look at those people and go, shit, should I be worried about those things too? Because you recognize they kind of have a distorted view of things. To me, it's just kind of like, if 500 idiots are freaking out about something versus 500,000 idiots versus 500 million idiots, at what point do I then say, boy, okay, so 500 million idiots, that equals one smart person, so I'm going to freak out too. You know what I mean? There's not a point at which that happens. There's not a certain number of unconscious reactions that will make me, as a sort of conscious decider, say, ooh, okay, maybe I should shut down my higher thinking capacity here and get on with the herd, because I'm going to boost my immune system by worrying, and then I'm going to boost it a little bit more by ridiculing and lecturing me and feeling superior to people who don't seem to be as worried as I am. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing, is I would like to be in control of my mind, and I'd like to be in control of my emotional responses to things, and I'd like to have a choice about to be able to ask myself that question: is this stupid? Is it stupid for me to be worried about this? I mean, we're driving down to the grocery store right now to do like our regular shopping, and there might not be anything down there. And if that's true, well, then we'll just turn around and come back home, and that'll be that. We'll respond to that when it happens, and we have permission to do that because we've thought about it. We've watched our stupid responses to things things not going the way we want them to enough, and we recognize those things aren't serving us, and we've recognized that we didn't really even know why we were doing that, and then we said, oh, if I think about it, that's probably I just learned how to react that way to this thing happening or not happening by watching my parents and how they reacted to that stuff. And then we kind of had a choice. We just said, instead of projecting oneself into the future and imagining terrible things happening and then rehearsing the bad feeling that you're going to have when and if those things come about, and also creating a bad feeling in yourself right now, maybe instead what you can do is just focus on responding resourcefully to whatever's going on in your life right now. We're driving down here, might be a waste of time. What are we doing? Well, I'm making a video, recording a thing for my YouTube, right? That's useful. When we get down there, if there's nothing there, or if somebody wants to fight me over a fucking thing of eggs or something like that, probably just let them have the eggs, whatever. And then when we come back, if it's snowing and the driving conditions aren't right, we'll just respond resourcefully to that too. It's like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, just deal with it. That's what's going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, you know what? We're just going to deal with what happens instead. And we're going to deal with what we have to deal with as resourcefully as we possibly can. And then one day we're going to die. And that's it. And it doesn't matter how many things we have to deal with or how resourcefully or not resourcefully we deal with those things. Eventually, we're going to respond ourselves to death. And then we're just going to die. And then all of our accomplishments probably won't matter to us that much. And all of our failures aren't going to matter to us that much either. Because this is not some thing where, you got to get it just right. And then the outcome is different. The outcome is the same, whether you fuck it up or not. And so you might as well just kind of relax and respond. It doesn't mean life is meaningless. It means that life is free. You know what I'm saying? It means that, when you jump out of the airplane, and you're skydiving, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, you're still falling, and so you might as well fall in a way that's fun to you. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's joining into some kind of, stupid star shape with a whole bunch of other people who are falling. Maybe it's, making yourself like a bullet so you fall real fast. Just do what you want to do. Just relax. But if you're worried about the right way to be falling, you're going to eventually hit the point where you need to pull the cord anyway. It's not going to make a difference. And if you don't know that, I feel like you're not really free. And if you don't know that, you're just going to waste time. Just wasting time feeling things that are just not worth feeling. It's like every bad feeling that a person has isn't sacred, and it's not a part of some kind of predetermined soul contract or path. Like, sometimes you stick your finger in the electrical outlet and you get shocked, and sometimes you realize there's a relationship between sticking your finger in the outlet and getting shocked. Sometimes you don't, and then sometimes when you don't, you keep on doing it. You know what I mean? And then eventually you figure out, or someone helps you realize, hey, you're bitching about the feeling of getting shocked. Stop putting your finger in there. And then, you make a resolution to do it, or you decide, you accept that it's probably a smart thing to do, to not stick your finger in the outlet. But then it's such a habit that you kind of keep doing it anyway when you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And so there's this period of time where you have to kind of like recalibrate what your unconscious inclinations are. That to me is what life is. It's like, how long is it going to take me to figure out to stop sticking my finger in the outlet? How long is it? And then how long is it going to take me to figure out that I don't need to resist the fact that I stuck my finger in the outlet after I've done it, which is all coming down to resourceful response. I think that people at some level love escapes from the mundane banality of their daily life. And I also think people love escape from personal responsibility. And that's in a sense kind of like what this is. It's out of our hands. It's in God's hands, or it's in the it's in the CDC's hands. Well, this is a national emergency. We all just have to come together. And I just am a good little boy, and I wash my hands, and I stay home, and I don't buy too much TP, and then that's all I have to do right now. You know what I mean? And the whole world reinforces this and says there's this big problem here, and as long as you don't do these things, we in a sense that we kind of love having life reduced to survival in a way, especially in this kind of modern reality TV age where like what you have to do to survive is not get into big groups, do your best to avoid contact with other people. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard to go to the store and buy twice as much of what you normally buy. But there's still this kind of sense of, oh my God, it's just different. I'm not, you're not bored. I bet the last time you went to the grocery store in the same way that you were probably bored on a normal day, where it's just kind of like, go to Costco, buy the shit, stand in the line, go home. And there's this kind of gnawing agitation sometimes that accompanies that if you're not really adept at enjoying life regardless of what it is. And I think that periods of crisis provide a kind of relief from that in a sense. But it doesn't require too much of you. I mean, it's not like we're all getting together to build some kind of massive, you know what I'm saying, antiviral wall or something like that. This isn't happening. It's not like we're all like, total war where our whole lives are built around surviving this thing. It's a couple of small kind of things that you have to do, but you get the juice. You get like the emotional payoff of, and that wonderful buzz of those stress hormones, as though you actually were engaged in some kind of life or death thing. And to me, it's kind of like recognizing what a kind of an emotional racket this whole thing is. And if a certain measure of behavioral response to a potential bad event is appropriate, there's like 100 times gratuitous, self-indulgent emotional response layered on top of it, sort of added on to it, snuck in. People were talking about people trying to sneak stuff into these bills, like the whole, like, we got to pass this bill so that we can send money to these people, but then everyone's like, oh yeah, okay, well, this is the time to sneak this stuff in. I feel like once in a while you have to do a couple of things behaviorally to keep yourself safe under certain situations or circumstances, and then we use that as an opportunity to layer on a whole bunch of superfluous emotional bullshit on top of it, worry and anxiety and all of these different things. That's not wrong. I'm not criticizing someone who does that. What I'm saying is, as an individual, I am interested in finding out if I'm doing that so that I'll have a choice about whether I'm going to continue to do it or not. This isn't an interpersonal one-upmanship where I can say I'm less worried than you, and therefore I'm smarter than you, I'm more rational than you, I'm more evolved than you, I'm more responsible than you. That's just a bullshit circle jerk preschool nonsense. That's just, I'm the mature one and you're silly, and I'm going to criticize your stressful. I'm going to criticize you for being stressed out, but I'm also in a way grateful that you're stressed out, because that's a mechanism by which I can feel superior to you and position myself as being superior to you amongst other people. That just doesn't interest me. It's not a fun game. It's not fun. If it were fun, I would do it. If I enjoyed feeling superior to other people more than I do, I would do everything in my power to make myself appear and feel to be as superior to everyone as I possibly could. So it's not that I'm a good person. It's just that I don't enjoy the game, and so I don't play it. I don't really like playing Monopoly, or I don't really like playing Scrabble, and so I don't. It's not about being a good person. It's just what kind of game do you like to play? And so I think really recognizing that this, like every fucking thing in your life, is an opportunity to learn how to choose more consciously to do what does serve you and to not do what doesn't. And sometimes doing what does serve you simply means making a conscious choice to refuse to do anything that doesn't. And that might kind of equate to doing basically nothing. A lot of people, I think in the beginning, when all of their kind of habitual reactions in general or to specific life situations are unresourceful, when they start choosing consciously, they don't necessarily choose to actively do something more useful. Very often it just kind of looks like holding back a little bit from the unresourceful shit that they normally do. And then they're kind of like, well, I don't know what to do now. Well, you want to keep that space. You want to hold some space, finally? Here, you want to keep that space open and not fill it with stupid shit. Like, it's okay. Like, when people buy a house sometimes, I feel like there's such a panic and a frenzy to fill the house up with garbage. Well, we got to have some knickknacks over here, and we got to have a piece of furniture over here. And you can see, I've watched it with my grandmother, I've seen it happen before, where this strange urgency inside to get a piece of furniture there that you're not going to sit on, a table that you're not going to use. It's not as though you're suffering because it's not there. There's an urgency to fill space. Nature abhors a vacuum, and in as much as we're kind of like an expression or a manifestation of nature, or in as much as we have certain characteristics we share with nature, or whatever you want to call it, we tend to not like empty space either. The problem with that is that when what it's like to be us is filled with a bunch of shit, a bunch of just useless time structuring, creates bad feelings, causes us to interact with other people in ways that don't work, that it doesn't enrich our experience, it's not fun. And I call it shit because you don't like it. If you liked it, it wouldn't be shit. You know what I'm saying? It would be great. I would say, you like what you're doing? Have a fucking great time. I mean, we've worked with people like this, right? I mean, there was a lady who came to me claiming that she wanted to get rid of her anxiety. And as we were working on it, I was noticing that she was not doing some of the things that I was suggesting that she do. And more than that, I was noticing that she was not even attempting to do those things. And more than that, I was noticing she wasn't even trying to pretend as though she was attempting to do those things. And we eventually got to the point where she said, you know what, I'm afraid that if I didn't worry as much as I do, that my life would be terribly boring. And so at that point, I asked her, well, do you want to address that and make it so that it feels, so that you're not worried that your life will be boring? Or would you rather just keep worrying? And she said, I think I'll just keep worrying. And I said, okay, great. See you later. probably never again, but maybe later, and that's that. But she made a conscious choice, basically. She assessed the kind of costs and the benefits of this worry as it existed in her life. And she said, given my inclination to change, and given the amount of effort I'm willing to put forward, and given, if I'm real with myself, how not bad the experience of worrying actually is for me, and given all of the kind of internal payoffs and goodies that it secretly gives me, that I normally don't acknowledge, because it has to be on the surface something bad, right, in order for it to play its function. But deep down, I don't mind it. I actually kind of like it. The tension, the zest kind of turns her on, All right, that's fine. You've made a conscious choice to keep it. That's great. I think that's good. I think that a person who can acknowledge to themselves, I just kind of like the drama. Oh, I just love the drama. I just love the gossip. I know maybe better things I could be doing, but at this time, I'm going to choose to continue to indulge in this, knowing full well that I'm indulging in it and all this. That's a very, as far as I can tell, spiritually evolved person. That's a very conscious person. That's an awake person to an extent. I think that probably some of the least awake people in the world are those who feel some sort of internal or external pressure to pretend as though they are more awake than they are. But people who are comfortable kind of expressing their awareness, their capacity for conscious choice, their decisions at the level that appeals to them at that given moment in time. I'm all about making money. I'm all about creating, fun, entertaining tiffs with my spouse. I'm all about competing with other people. They say that's just what I like to do, and that's what I want to keep doing, and I like it, and I don't want to like something else instead. I think that's a wise person in a way. I think it's a wisdom that doesn't proclaim itself. It's a wisdom that's just there to be observed by anyone who cares to see it. Not necessarily in themselves or in another person or in people generally or in teachers, but who just cares to witness wisdom when they're in the presence of it. And I think that there's a real example of it there. And so your ability, then this whole thing is about making conscious choices about how I'm going to respond to life in this situation. Do I want to? To me, it's undignified to not have a choice about how I'm going to think and feel and behave when something like this happens. I don't want to be a person who has a wonderful life and never has anything bad happen to them, but who would completely go down the fucking toilet if something went off the rails. I don't want my well-being to be predicated upon, and I mean my ability to just kind of savor existence for what it is and the sensations of existence for what they are. I don't want that to be predicated upon the survival of civilization or of society or of the health of myself or of other people or of people generally. All of those things are things that can ebb and flow. All of those are things that will come into being and pass out of being and be threatened and then turn out to be okay and then probably not be threatened and then completely go off the rails, right? And I want the ability to be in the midst of whatever shape reality happens to be taking at a given moment in time and create for myself the, empowering, the dignified, the natural, flowing, connected sensation of responding resourcefully to what is without regard for what is. It's almost like it's kind of like a test. It's like reality wants to see what you're willing to respond resourcefully to and what you're not. And it's sort of like, in a way, it's like sort of maybe the universe testing itself in an odd way. Look how pretty this green is. Mm-hmm. It's like a different place, It's this interesting thing that says, what am I willing to respond unresourcefully to? You know what I mean? What am I willing to refuse to respond resourcefully to? That's interesting, because that's different. Because then you catch someone off guard and they get a little worried. That's not a failure. That's just something that happened, right? How are you going to respond to being caught off guard? How are you going to respond to having responded unresourcefully? You're going to respond resourcefully to that. One of the things that, trips people up when we're working with them, I think you probably had this experience too. They resolve that they're going to speak to their spouse in a kinder way. And they unconsciously and unintentionally fail to do that, or they succeed at doing the opposite. They speak to their spouse in an unkind way. And then, so they responded unresourcefully. Then they refuse to respond resourcefully to the fact that they responded unresourcefully, because responding resourcefully to having responded unresourcefully sort of requires that a person forego certain self-indulgences, like self-castigation. Oh, I can't believe I did it again, blah, blah, blah. I'm emotionally resisting the fact that I did it. I'm feeling intense remorse. I'm feeling bad instead of thinking smart. You know what I'm saying? I'm so busy beating myself up for the fact that I have responded unresourcefully that I don't notice that beating myself up is another and a more kind of powerful and poignant iteration of responding unresourcefully. I refuse to respond resourcefully to what I just did, because resourceful response has a certain redemptive quality to it. And in order for me to respond resourcefully to what I just did, I have to in some way modify my conclusions and my assumptions and my beliefs and the emotions I'm feeling about what I just did, such that they can accommodate the idea that what I just did can be made better, can be okay, that it can be just a part of the unfoldment of things. And I have this addiction to self-castigation. I have this addiction to essentially judging the past. I have this addiction to feeling bad about what is instead of responding resourcefully to it. And so I think that a big part of personal freedom is recognizing that everything that happens in life is an invitation for you to insist upon kind of the expansion and the deepening of your personal freedom. And that would include this situation. It includes every shitty situation. It includes the prospect of how bad things could get. And it also includes the reality of how bad things can get if in fact that's what comes to pass. It's learning just to respond resourcefully to everything. It's like your kids. You love them kind of no matter what they do. You know, there's not like you're not going to say, oh, I can't wait to find out if, unless you're like a crap parent, like your kid comes from school, I can't wait to find out if they got an A so I can find out if I still love my child or not. I can't wait to find out if they, beat up that bully so I can determine if I'm going to accept them or reject them, as a weakling or something like that. Usually, if you're a good parent, that's not how it works. You know how you're going to feel about your child when you get home. How you interact with them might be different on the basis of the kind of day that they had, or whether they did or didn't do what they were supposed to do, or whether they had something good happen to them or something bad or whatever. The interaction changes, but the basic love that you have for the child is the same. The basic willingness to kind of meet them where they are and help them get to where they want to be, where you would like for them to be, is the same. And I feel like when you take that relationship to reality, it doesn't matter when the future gets here. If the future is, few people got sick, but basically everyone's pretty much fine, or 3/4 of the population is dead, what are we going to do now? It's like when you have the kind of relationship to reality that allows you to go, okay, damn, all right, well, given this, what do we want? Oh, what's that, son? You stole $30,000 of gold coins from my room so that you can go buy drugs for you and your friends, and now all the money is gone because you got mugged. Okay, well, given that, what are we going to do? You're going to respond differently to that than if they got an A on their calculus exam. But still, basically, you love them. Basically, you're willing to work with them. You accept the fact that this kind of unfortunate thing happened, and then you move forward. You know what I mean? That's personal freedom. And that's what I'm interested in. And I'm interested in getting better at recognizing opportunities and invitations to develop more of that in every life situation. And I think that if a person thinks about this in that way, you uncover your ability really to engage resourcefully with unpleasant realities without having to create unnecessarily unpleasant emotional experiences within yourself.